Try to imagine something that doesn't exist, something you've never seen. Now concentrate on how it makes you feel, and let your hand drift across the canvas.
Detroit Become Human is one of my favorite games. One of the reasons for this is because I love the characters in the world, and the story especially. However, in this review, I'm going to be following Marcus and showing some of his most impactful scenes. That's because of the short time frame of the video. However, I'm going to veer away from discussing the plot for spoiler reasons, and because I want to talk about other parts of the game. I want to focus on the choices that the player can make, and how not all choices have an impact on the story, but are instead deeply related to the characters, and your choices develop those characters and the world of the game. And this can actually be seen in one of the earliest parts of the game. Here, the player is given a choice as to what Marcus will paint. However, you don't know exactly how the painting will turn out. On my first playthrough, I simply clicked the buttons, but I expected there to be more choices at the end. And what I realized afterwards is that despite playing an integral part in how the painting turns out, instead it feels as if the player is working in partnership with Marcus, and the painting being created is not actually from the player's desires, but it is instead Marcus's desires that are being revealed, and your choices are simply asking, which part of Marcus do you want to see?
Oh my God.
Every choice you make in Detroit Become Human is only a choice that the character would make. Now that is not to say that the player is stifled and limited, but instead that the options are real. For example, if the player wants to, for some reason, kill Carl, that would simply be a choice that Marcus would never make. However, the choices you can make have an incredible impact because of this quote-unquote limitation. Every action you decide on is a real action, not only for the story but also for the character. If you decide to retaliate against Leo in this scene, think about how that might affect Marcus. In science, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. That's Newton's law. However, in Detroit Become Human, this could be seen as well. No matter which character or part of the story you want to look at, everything you do has a consequence in the game. These consequences might be changing later parts of the story, or they might be changing the character themselves. And while this might not be apparent early on, as the player continues to make these choices, the consequences will pile up, and eventually you will see that the world has changed based on your actions, and even the characters themselves have changed.
I'm gonna destroy you. It'll just be me and my dad. I'm gonna tear you apart, and nobody's gonna give a shit. You know why? Because you're nothing. You hear me? You're nothing. Now! Go! Marcus! Don't fucking move!
Imagine Marcus's feelings right now. Think of how afraid he is, having just become a deviant, which you could say is being born for an android, yet already having made a terrible mistake. Think of how horrified he is in not knowing how his father figure, Carl, sees him. Now imagine how he feels after being abandoned. Waking up isolated, not just physically, but also from his father. The choice that you made as a player will define who Marcus becomes. Now I want to go over the gameplay in Detroit Become Human. To interact with the world, the player has two methods. One is choosing dialogue options, and the other is inputting buttons. For me, these inputs are keys, as I use a keyboard. I do, however, have a pet peeve about this method of gameplay. While I enjoy dialogue options as they feel important, I often find that the key inputting method is rather lackluster. What's the point of holding tedious buttons if the only consequence of letting go is adding an extra couple of seconds to a mundane task, like falling back down a cliff? Whether or not I fail this keyboard check has nothing to do with the story and has no lasting impact whatsoever, and can just feel annoying. That said, I do see how in cases like QuickTime events, this feature can be necessary, as failing and succeeding do have lasting consequences. And in the end, I know that the reason this method exists is so that it doesn't just feel like the player is going through an endless cutscene. Despite my dislike of some of the gameplay, however, I really enjoy playing Detroit Become Human. I enjoy it the same way I enjoy reading fantasy novels. I know that what I'm seeing or reading isn't happening in reality. However, that doesn't stop me from feeling like it's real. Detroit Become Human is a game packed with emotion and tension, because unlike reading a book, your choices decide the ending. So if you're going to buy the game, then ask yourself, how do you want the story to end?
Oh my God.